Is finish this off today, but logically you'd start from the top and then work down, but the sun is coming in, it always hits the top first. What I want is I want it all to dry at the same time, so I'm going to start at the bottom, come up, come around and come back down on that edge. Before we start, I'm just going to quickly go through something. This is a finished wall. As you can see, I've got a stop bead that I finished to. This is protected, by the way, it's not on the floor. But basically, you plant a stop bead above your DPC. So your brickwork, you got DPC. If you plant a stop bead and render above it, this will stop any damp bridging from below the brick onto your render. Okay, so the first part to this tutorial is applying the render. Now I've done a lot of separate videos on this, so I'm not going to go too deep into it. But the idea is that we're working right to left. So I'm right-handed. Usually, if you're plastering, it'd be left to right. With the rendering, we're working from the right side of the wall across to the left. And that's because when you're applying the render, you can gauge it from your right-hand side. So I've applied the render to the bead. That is our guide. That is what we're working towards, and that's what we're going to be using to as a gauge to see how thick you want to be applying the render. So if you can work from a bead, that is best because it helps you have an idea on how thick you want to be applying your top coat of render. What I'm done is I'm working on my scratch coat. I've done a separate video to this a few weeks ago. But basically, what you want to do is just give the wall a little hose down before you start applying your render. So what I've done is I've gently hosed the wall down, and then I'm applying the render directly to the scratch. All you need is to give the scratch coat a bit of water first. But what you want to be doing is when you're applying the render is pushing it hard into your scratch. It's all about pressure, and when you are applying the render, you really want to be pushing it hard into your scratch coat and making sure that when you are applying it, you're putting a lot of pressure behind you and a lot of weight in there. It's just so basically the top coat of render is going to grip nicely to that scratch coat. Because what we're going to be doing later on is we're going to start ruling this flat, and the last thing you want is to have the render loosely gripped to the scratch coat. It needs to be stuck in there and really etched into the grooves that you made in the scratch coat in the first stage of rendering. So again, using your beads as a guide, we're working right to left. Get it as flat as possible, but you want to avoid over troweling your render really. You just want to put it on and let it dry for a little bit, let it suck into the scratch coat, let it take up, and then that's when we're going to start getting the wall flat. But you don't get it flat by applying the render with the trowel. That is not how you do it with rendering. It's not like plastering. We get the render flat by using something called a straight edge, which I'm going to show you very shortly. So avoid over troweling, and when you are applying the render, use your beads as a guide and put a lot of pressure behind you. So the next stage, this is where we're ruling the render flat. What I've got here, this is a straight edge. It's actually called a feather edge, and that's because it's going, the back edge is flat, but the front edge is beveled slightly to a point, which means it makes it easier to take the render off the wall there. What I'm doing now is using the bead to the right as a guide. I'm just pushing and pulling the excess render off the wall, and this is what we use to get the render flat. So as you can see, I'm still using the bead as a guide, and you really want to push against that right hand side. So I'm using the bead at the bottom also, just above the double doors as a guide. And what we're doing is we're just getting that wall flatter and flatter. As you can see, it is literally just about patience with this ruling. It does take a bit of time at the beginning, but I think this is probably the most crucial part to rendering, because this is what makes your wall flat. We're going to go into the floating stage. I'm going to go into that in detail in a minute. But this is the stage that gets your wall dead flat. If you skip this stage, if you've got a bump in the render that you didn't manage to rule out, then that's going to stick out like a sore format, and it's going to make everything after this point extremely hard. Ruling is the main stage to getting your wall flat, and like I said, if you get this wrong now, then everything else after this point is going to be extremely hard. So what I would say is take a lot of time with your ruling. Don't skip this stage. Don't think you'll get over it with the sponge or the float. This is the most crucial stage for me, and this is what I think you should be really focused. It's raining. It's raining. It's not raining hard yet, but it's raining. So I'm gonna have to watch it. Luckily I've got dust sheets. I can just throw them over the edge. Hopefully I don't need to do that, but yeah, it's definitely raining. We've wrapped it up, it's still raining, but we managed to get plastic around thanks to my good friend Ben, decorator, saved the day. So hopefully that'll hold off. Hopefully the rain stops. So, a few hiccups. I did check the weather, it said it'd be dry, they lied to me. So, we're wrapped up. So we must carry on. Okay, the rain's gone away and now it's sunny. Tropical British weather. Okay, now we're coming to the floating stage. I've already started in this section. I'm going to show you how we're going to start finishing the render that we've put on and ruled. And I'm going to use a bit of a cheat and use the secret weapon, so let's do it. Okay, so what I've done here, as I have let the render dry, it's been about an hour, possibly an hour and a half. But what you want to be doing is allowing the render to take up at this point. And what we're doing here, this is called floating. Now you can use a little hand float. What I've got here is the Rafina Power Float. It's an awesome bit of kit, and it takes a lot of the manual side of floating. It takes a lot of the hard work away from it. But basically the process is the exact same whether you hand float or whether you use a machine like this. What we're doing is compressing the render into itself. When you ruled it off, we pulled the excess off. But now what we want to be doing is we want to be closing in the open sections of render. As you can see, when you're ruling, it leaves it very gritty. This is the stage where we start getting a finish. But when you are floating, you want to really focus and work along the beads, the corner beads. Again, the angles of any building is very important to get crisp and get right. So what we're doing is working along the corner beads and then working across. As you can see, I'm working along the bead above the door also. But what this does is, like I was saying before, it compresses the render, it pushes it into itself. Not only does it make it stronger, it compacts the render, which makes it a lot tougher for the elements, and it keeps it pressed into that scratch coat. Again, it's all about pressure. We want to make sure that it's really got a grip onto that initial coat that we've given it, and the scratch coat that we did earlier on in the process. But as you can see, there's a few rivets, there's a few dips in the render. Just take the render. It's got a bit stiff now because I've left it on the I've left it out in the sun. But it is literally just as simple as filling in any low spots. So using your trowel, filling in any low spots of render, and then we're just going to float it back up again. That's the only way you can get rid of these little rivets and these little dips, is by filling whatever has been missed behind. Again, when you're ruling, it's not a completely true process. There is going to be some sections that are missed out. Simply just grab the render, same stuff as what you're using before, and just fill in the areas that need it. As soon as you've filled it, don't wait any longer. As soon as you've filled it, get the float out and just refloat it. As you can see now, it's really going to start closing in them areas that were missing before. After this clip, I must admit I had to go along the tops again, but the main idea is that once you've filled it, immediately get your float out, whether it's hand float or machine float like this, and just start to really compress the render again and just start filling in any spots that were missing before. Now we're starting to get a picture of how the render's going to look. It's looking flat. We're going to fill in any areas that were missing, and it's really starting to close it off. And you know, it's starting to look like a finished product. That's what the floating process does. The other good thing about applying that render, it gives the float a bit of lubrication, and it's allowed that you won't believe how far that render will go. Now the float, any float, will use that excess render that's been left over. It'll pull off any high spots. That's what the floating does. Pulls off any high spots of render and fills in any low areas. Because you've got that bit of render to play with now, it's lubricated the rest of the render up, and it's allowed it to have a bit of play. No matter, it was a bit dry, I must admit, but now you can see that that whole section now is getting covered nicely, and it's starting to look like it's a finished product. But like I said, as soon as you've applied the render to the low spots, jump back on the float again and start the process. Don't wait. You don't want that render to dry up. You want to use that bit of a lubrication to complete the process and just to give the rest of the render something to work with. Okay, now we're coming to the last bit of the rendering process. Well, this part of the video at least. all you do now after you've floated the render is you sponge it. This is just a jumbo sponge. You want to make sure it's damp, so I've put it in a bucket of water and then I've clenched all the water out of it. We don't want the sponge to be wet because you don't want to liven the render back up again. You want it to be slightly damp, that's all. And all we're doing is I'm doing in anti-clockwise motions. I'm just bringing the aggregate of the sand to the front. Basically what this does, it gives you that traditional sand cement finish. And it just gives it that final look where, you know, it just finishes it off really nicely. Big rule of thumb here is constantly keep your sponge clean. The render will build up onto the sponge, it'll fill into the spores. So what you want to do is constantly clean it. And I go over it twice, so I'll give it initial sponge. I used a bit of a rougher one. And what I've done now is I've got a finer sponge. And this is what I do now. Again, clean it, get all the water out, and just give it gentle motions, circular motions, anti-clockwise, to really finish that look and bring the aggregate to the surface. And it just closes it up. It closes up all the areas that you missed before, and it's just giving it that final touch. The big rule of thumb when you are sponging is you want a light touch. You don't apply a lot of pressure, because what happens if you do, you'll start to see the lines, the sand will start rubbing against the render and it'll create a texture. You don't really want that. You want a real light touch and just constantly keep your sponge clean. If it does build up with sand, that'll start grating across your finish and it'll start causing what we call rat tails. It leaves lines behind. So again, a lot of care, but this is probably the easiest stage to the rendering. All the hard work's been done. What I do now is just quickly run across the beads, get off any excess render, and just clean them off, ready for the next stage. I'm going to do the reveals later. I've left all the reveals to the end. The rest of the render's been applied actually, but what I'm doing is just cleaning the beads, cleaning them off, ready for the next stage. But that is literally it. That is how you get a lovely finished rendered look. Now let's move on to the next bit. We've come back. What we've started doing is scoring the lines. So keeping the original features, carrying the lines through. Just putting the reveals on whilst we're doing it. I'm going to walk you through how to get the traditional effect. So that's the look we're going for. I'm going to show you exactly how to do it. It's actually really easy. It's not really that hard at all. Oh, they want the line to meet with the existing. It's not actually completely level, but they wanted it to follow suit. It's about 6 centimeters out over a span of 3.5 meters, so it is slightly uphill. But we've got our special assistant today. Holly's going to help, and she's even got the t-shirt on. Happy days. Okay, so what we're using is a carbon, and it's basically steel cutting blades. These are the extra thin ones, they're 1mm. And all you do is you grab this, just got these from Tool Station, a pack of 10, and just snap them. And then what you do is you wear the edges on a stone. Eventually you get something like this, and all you do, it's very easy. You literally, with my help of my assistant, what we've done is we've pinged a chalk line from that end to the finishing point. All you do is when the finish, this is about 2 days dry, and you're literally just following the lines. You just score the render, and what you're left with is the line. Now obviously, usually what we would do is starting from the corner, use a level across, and then use that to find what your line, but because we've strung the line with the chalk line, we've got this as a guide, so we're just following this at the moment. Whereas over here we used the level, we just level across, and then we obviously get the plumb lines down. So what we did is we used the original as a template because he had it on a building. So it's 15 inches down from each line, 15 and a half actually, and 810 millimeters apart, and that's what makes the brick. So at the moment we're just going to do the horizontals, and then we're going to add the verticals in. Okay, so that is the end of the tutorial. Like I said, that last part, it's nothing hard about it, it just takes a lot of time. So I'm going to leave you finishing with me doing this last bit on my own. But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you watching this video. If you like this video, please like it and hit the subscribe button, because we're going to be doing a lot more of these, as we have been doing for a good few years now. So thanks again for watching. I will see you on the next side, and please feel free to leave a comment to let us know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Hit subscribe and I'll see you soon. Nice one. Cheers.